today's debate organized by the debate club SSST. This is the first debate organized by this club since it is a newly founded club at this university. And today's debate is just an introduction to all of the activities which the debate club is going to perform in the future. I am Irma Borovina and I'll be your moderator today. We'll have two teams in this debate since we use a Karl Popper debate format. On my right side, the Affirmative team, and the members of this team are students. The first speaker is the second speaker is Neira Hodzic, and the third speaker is Sarah Murovic. The negative team is on my left side. The members of this team are professors, Emina Ganic, Francesca Santis, and Goran Ribic. As you can see, the topic of today's debate is the Bosnian identity should be the supreme identity in BIH. I hope that this will be a very interesting and challenging debate between students and professors. I'll just quickly introduce some rules of this debate. The first speakers will have 6 minutes for their speeches. The second and third speaker of each team will have 5 minutes per speech. And the cross-examinations will last for 3 minutes. I hope you enjoy the debate.
I'm the first speaker of the Affirmative team, and today's debate will essentially be about 3 things. First being, what are the roots of political, economical, social, and cultural crises that Bosnia and Herzegovina is in? Second being, what are the political and economical implications of the current system? And third, the only viable solution for this crisis is the legal framework that will provide for flourishment of multiple identities, progress, and prosperity of each citizen of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Before I get to explanation of our arguments, I will provide you with several definitions that are highly necessary for understanding of our debate. Let us start with the word supreme. What does supreme mean? The word supreme comes from Latin supremus, meaning up, one above, and the second definition is identity. Identity and information, such as identification number, used to establish or prove person's identity, as in providing access to a credit card account. Bosnian simply being a person who possesses legal documents, such as state ID and a passport. With an identity that is supreme, and I repeat, supreme meaning upper and above the others, one that we all, and by all we mean all the identities in Bosnia and Herzegovina, not only the 3 constituent people like in the current system, every single identity can flourish and be respected as equal, simply by the fact that none of these can be above the other. Just a tall person, just because it's taller, does not deny the existence of shorter people, the same way Bosnia's supreme identity does not deny the existence of all other identities. We need this because the entire political system in Bosnia and Herzegovina is based on the constant battle between identities for supremacy. Let us now define nationality. Nationality refers to the place where the person was born and has citizenship. The so-called national key completely counters the interests of people in Bosnia and limits their choice. In the rule by ethno-national groups fighting for supremacy of their respected so-called ethno-national groups and religious communities at the expense of those who are not constituent is the current system. And the disparity and shame of the system is that you can't legally declare yourself as Bosanac, as Bosnian. In order to have identity in this country, you need to choose one of those that carry prefixes of the past and have your own personal identity as the legal one. In the system of Bosnia and Herzegovina, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot just be a legal citizen. You need to be your name, your past, your language, and your religion. Let us now quote John Dewey. As long as the prevailing mentality believes that the consequences of this belief affect the whole society, religion is necessarily a public matter. Why we need the objective and neutral supreme identity is also the criticism of the system that is currently in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it is causing political, economical, social, and cultural difficulties. The only identity that is neutral is the Bosnian identity, and by identity it can provide for equality of all other identities because it does not carry any other prefixes like the other identities we have now. There is a strict ethnic division in every sphere of life, and we need to avoid this. We are providing with a solution for this, and for many other problems that are keeping Bosnia stuck in one place and without moving forward. Why is it important to put objective legal identity on a highway? It is the final stop the constant fight for the supremacy of three constituent people in Bosnia and Herzegovina and the discrimination of every other citizen of Bosnia. If we take a look at the example of the recent state-agency case, we can clearly see the level of discrimination in Bosnia and Herzegovina and how this affects the situation. This poses a worrisome question whether Bosnia and Herzegovina is a democracy. The country that does not allow for equality of access to all its people, that is in this case the others, Roma and Jews, might as well be considered a tyranny of three constituent people in the political matters. In order for this to be avoided, supreme Bosnian identity, one without any preference, one that is objective and neutral, that will encompass all other identities, thus cherish diversity, needs to exist. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I just want to greet you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I have about 3 minutes, so I'll just cover a couple of points. The identity that the affirmative team is talking about is a fixed concept, and what we would argue on the other side, that identity is an ever-changing concept, that it is changes through time, but it is not a fixed concept. One of the
You're supposed to ask questions.
Just questions.
Oh, just questions. Okay. Questions. How do you plan to impose this supreme identity?
So we are not imposing an identity. As citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, we already are Bosnian. It is up to us to see, are we really want that to be just on a personal level or a legal matter to help us in the future. We are not imposing. The Bosnian identity is already here. It is socially constructed as every other identity.
Another question. Why should there be a supremacy of just one collective identity?
As we said, supremacy in this case means the one identity that is above the others. It does not deny the existence of all other identities, but simply to stop them from fighting, which is causing the crisis in Bosnia, we need the one, the legal, without any prefixes of caste, of religion, or any ethnic division, to be the legal one, just on the paper as a document, and not to carry implications of the past. So we need all identities to be diverse and to exist and to flourish, but we need a legal and neutral objective identity to be in our papers.
Why should Bosnian be the supreme identity in Bosnia?
The name Bosnian derives from Bosnian identity, derives from the name of the country, as it is the case everywhere in the world. So Bosnia and Herzegovina being Bosnian identity, therefore that's the legal identity of the country.
First, I would like to congratulate a member of the affirmative team who I think speaks faster than I do, which is, I think, the first individual I've ever met who can get that opportunity. So I'm going to try to remember everything you said in my attempt to address your argument. First, I think I'm very confused by your position and the definitions that you use for these terms. And in fact, after your exposition, I'm not sure what the argument in fact is. So for us, we have to go back to understanding what is identity. And I think the affirmation team confuses identity with identification. If the confusion is accurate and it stands, their position is basically like saying, well, citizens of the United States should be American, or all French citizens are French. Therefore, it's a non-position, and we clearly default that all Bosnians are indeed Bosnian, and do not understand where the argumentation would come to either affirm or deny this. It's a tautology. And it comes from, again, confusion between identity and identification. So to go back to what identity is, in order to know what we're arguing about, I first look at different concepts of identity, different currency of thought. So in philosophy, identitas, from Latin, means sameness. It is a thing, a set of characteristics that each thing bears in relation just to itself. In logic, the law of identity is the first of the three laws of thought, and it says everything is similar to itself and different from another thing. In fact, identity in itself is an amalgam. It is not a single thing. It is an amalgam of characteristics that each thing, each person, if you like, it becomes even more complex with that, has gathered through time in response to his environment, in response to the conditions of his living, is a sense of continuity. And in a sense, we can share certain aspects of this, of the parts that form our identity, but it's always an incredibly personal and an individual thing. In sociology and psychology, which is what the affirmative team is mostly talking about, it is a person's and an individual's concept and expression of their individual or group affiliations. So, identity, therefore, the nonsense in the argument, if there is no confusion, if the affirmation team is indeed talking about identity rather than identification, identity by itself is, it cannot be a should. It is a thing one carries with itself, formed within itself, and therefore just to use the word should is to negate or to demonstrate the lack of understanding of what identity is. It is also impossible to grade an identity, to add a scale. The word supremacy and the word identity are inherently contradictory because identity is an amalgam. One thing cannot be above another. What forms who we are today? Our gender, our family, our education, our economic class, history, heritage. How can you impose who I am or what a person is? Aristotle, very famously in Metaphysics, talked about how do you define a man, he said. And he said, let it be a two-footed animal. And indeed, a man is a two-footed animal. In order to describe such a complex thing as a man, you must reach out to other identifications as well. Each of these is a thing in and of itself. I want to expand this argument now. This concept that the young team, the affirmative team, is putting forward is a very regressive concept. It calls back to times of the formation of nation states. In today's global village, back in the day, a human being was to meet 100 persons in its lifetime. Identities were different. Today, we form affiliations with people as far as China, as far as India. We form affiliations, matters that concern our identity, that are far more global than the conscripts of a single country. And why stop at Bosnia? Why shouldn't the supreme identity be European for all people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, or human? Why are we pushing the Bosnian into a construct that it does not necessarily need to be in at all? Let me address some of the points that my opponent has talked about. She said, we cannot legally declare yourself as Bosnian. Again, this is the confusion, because it is unnecessary. Why would you degrade the Bosnian into an arena of competition between what is our ethnic and our linguistic? Why add this into an argument we can debate whether we are or not Bosnian? We simply are, in terms of identification. What we can do, and what this debate can be about, if the affirmative team so wishes, is how to strengthen this component of our identity that is Bosnian. What we are hearing here are the arguments that our politicians use when they want to distract us. In our political arena, we talk constantly, are we Bosnian, or are we this, or are we that, are we not? And it's a distraction so that we don't talk about the true supremacy of our needs. What do we need as citizens? What do we need as people? Not what should we be called, because that is an individual right that we should all protect. To say anything else is to put in danger our ability to form our identity. Another important thing that I think the affirmation team misses, and this is the following. In diaspora, they talk very emotionally about the conflict, the war, the aggression that happened in this country. All the members of the diaspora who were chased from their homes, for example, who are left this country, should their supreme identity, by your argument, not be Bosnian then? Is it owed to the country where they are right now? Should they declare themselves supremely as Swiss? Should they declare themselves, supremely Norwegian? Do we enter people's souls in such a manner? Our civic rights should not be debatable, and this we concede. They should not be in a philosophical or a theoretical arena. You cannot put it up to the citizen to ask for the country we supremely feel Bosnian, and therefore we ask his right as a citizen. These are unalienable rights, and therefore it is an unnecessary argument entirely. So, in the end, I would like to give you a small quote that again puts forward what we are saying. Identity is described as consisting of separate and distinct parts. Our gender, our family, our religion, culture, profession, I've said all this. And I want to quote Dr. J. Palmer, you have the quote in front of you. It is an ever-evolving core within which the sum of our experiences, choices, and interactions come together to form who we are at this moment. Who we are at this moment. It must always be that choice. So Bosnian must grow as this country must grow. Bosnian must come as a set of impulses and interactions that we have among each other. It is not imposed, it is not a should, and most certainly it cannot be supreme or talked about supremacy. Thank
you. First, I want to congratulate you on your excellent talk, Mr. Hills. I must say that I'm not surprised
surprised. Also, my team agrees with me that your whole speech was quite predictable. Your questions were quite predictable, and actually your speech was in favor of all our arguments. First, I will start with one simple question, and I will ask you, if I think that I'm not that rude, what's your nationality?
By the way, everything you said so far was not a question but a statement, and therefore I cite the affirmation team for breaking the rule of the debate.
We have 3 minutes, I have so many questions to ask you. So first, what's your nationality?
I am a Bosnian woman of Bosnian ethnicity, Muslim in religion, female in gender.
You're Bosnian? You're
Bosnian in character.
You're Bosnian, and does that mean that you live in Bosniakistan? Please tell me.
I don't understand the question.
You're Bosnian. Does that mean you live in Bosniakistan?
Where is Bosniakistan?
I don't know. Thank you for saying that. Also,
How do I live in a place that does not exist?
Yes, and how can you have an identity that doesn't exist? You're Bosnian. And also, furthermore, I want to ask you whether your citizenship that you have, should it indicate your religion, political affiliation, I don't know, cultural background?
Okay, allow me to answer. See, by proposing the things that you're proposing, you are specifically, when you said in your opening statement to me rather than a question.
No. We won't allow for that.
Yes.
We will simply allow for answer to the question.
This is an answer.
No explanation.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it is your team who puts forth the idea of supremacy or competition between what is my national identity and what is my citizenship, my defaulted identity. I say to you, my Bosnian is not in competition with my Bosnian. And therefore, I think you confuse the issue.
No. Please stop. No evaluation of the affirmative team.
So I believe that the Bosniak and the Bosnian, which can both coexist, are not in a competition of a sort that could be graded as a supreme
First, I think that you didn't heard our plan, what we are proposing. Actually, we are proposing.
No. Stop. It's not an explanatory discussion.
Maybe we could arm wrestle.
This can all be stated during the speeches. Please, questions and answers.
Also, you said that we are imposing something. Can you please define what that means by imposing? Can you define? But short, because we don't have.
An imposition means a choice that is made outside the processes I make myself. I find it in the word should. And
How can you say that we are imposing something when Bosnian identity already exists?
That's precisely why I demonstrate the falseness of your argument. It cannot be imposed because it is.
But you're not imposing that. You're just suggesting it should be one identity because it is the only legal and neutral identity that doesn't have any prefixes like any other identity.
Time's up.
So I'm the second speaker of the Affirmative team, and I will just say that I will actually thank the speaker of the negative team because she actually made a very convincing speech in our favor. Because we are not debating here that the identities are not personal, individual things, but that they are not possible in Bosnia and Herzegovina. You can only have 3 identities, which are Bosnian, Croat, and Serb. What about the other people? To proceed, they have only one argument that builds upon the definition of identity. We had 3 arguments. 3 major essential questions of this debate, which refer to the cause of the current situation, which is the ethnopolitics negative team is proposing. They are debating in favor of the current crisis and the current situation. So let us proceed with economic political implications and the solution to the problem. Firstly, we live in ethnopolis, which is a community characterized by political priority of ethnic right. When you vote, you do not vote for lower taxes or environmental laws. You vote for your survival within the ethnic group because only that way you are privileged in political and economical sense. What Florian Gieber says is that here we have the present phenomena of counting blood cells, meaning that it is predetermining people's professional opportunities based on their ethnic belonging. As far as your argument about, or attempt of the argument about the about the global village and about the formation of nation states, I must say that there were no facts, there was only theoretical debate, and we are far too away from just debating this theoretically. What is the practical implication of your suggestions? It is the current system, and I am sure that nobody is satisfied within the living of the current system. So, census lists the category ethnic national, which is not in accordance with public or international law. This further suggests that Bosnia and Herzegovina is stuck in the 18th century, when the ethnic
belonging was actually predetermined of the group. After the formation of nation states, the legal concepts and terms were developing and they become irrevocably used after the formation of UN, which is United Nations and not United Peoples. So my question to you is, do we determine ourselves according to the rest of the world? Do we want to be the part of the world that we are already physically a part of? Second of all, the economic and political implications, meaning that we are living in a capitalism of the wild European East. As Professor Murkic, I will quote, he says that economic experts point out to the highly contradictory and non-stimulating laws and regulations that are blocking economic progress of Bosnia and Herzegovina. According to the Employers Association, there are 30,500 laws that contradict each other. Furthermore, the government spending at roughly 50% of GDP remains high because of redundant government offices at a state entity and municipal level. This is all, I repeat, the consequence of the ethnopolitics, which the negative team is upholding. Religion is politically instrumentalized. Education is segregated, and I don't want even to go into the question of state-spinci and discrimination towards the others. If you are saying that the identity is personal, individual matter, then how can a person who is Roma or Jew uphold his identity in the system that we are currently living in? You said that identity means the sameness. If we would offer our solution, which is supreme, objective, legal, all-encompassing Bosnian identity, in legal, objective, neutral terms, that is the only identity that actually allows us to express every personal individual identity we possess within ourselves. It would allow values such as equality, justice, and progress. I think we're very much forgetting about this. This identity, meaning that it allows equality of access to all people, streaming to diversity and recognizing richness, does not discriminate and is therefore just and does not fall under manipulation, so inevitably calls for progress. I would like to quote Denis Gratz, who said that subduing Bosnians and Herzegovinas to those who express themselves only in terms of ethnicity is in fact destroying Bosnia and Herzegovina as a joint mutual state and Bosnia and Herzegovina nation as a cohesive body we are all entitled to by the virtue of our birth or citizenship. I think that the major thing that the negative team actually has to recognize is that emotional blackmail and theoretical discussions will not lead us anywhere. The problem that we need to solve is of practical nature, and you need to implement that theoretical Aristotelian thing in the current Bosnian and Herzegovinian system. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, by the way. You should be on our team. So, do you agree that the state of Bosnia should provide equal rights and services to all its citizens despite of their ethnicity?
Of course I do, because that is the point of discrimination that I was discussing.
Okay. Are our citizen rights negotiable or dependent on some kind of a consensus?
Well, we are not here discussing the policy debate, we are discussing theoretical approaches.
I ask you theoretically, are the citizen rights in theory negotiable or dependent on consensus? So if I do not call myself Bosnian,
yes, but that further leads to the political implications. Because if they are in theory negotiable, yes, you will say that they are not.
Are my citizen rights in theory negotiable or dependent on consensus? In theory?
No.
Okay, are union, thank you. And therefore, I will conclude, well, my colleague will conclude. Are uninational states, in terms of your knowledge of history, of political thought, more successful as political or democratic or economic models than multinational states? Are they better organized states?
Which is the uninational state? For example, today, give me an example. You were talking about global village and that there is no borders anymore. So which is a uninational state?
France.
France is a uninational state?
Sure.
I would not say that.
So, but would you say that if we had uninational states, would they be more successful than a multinational state?
That is very relative, and I would not agree with that.
With what? So
actually, we have to debate what is a nationality at first, because if a nationality is only citizenship, then yes.
Thank you, I understand. If I can declare myself as Bosnian in terms of a national consensus, does that mean it's also open to debate that I'm also not Bosnian? Because if you're saying, so I can also, you could enter Bosnian into a debate.
Every citizen of Bosnia and Herzegovina is Bosnian. It recognizes
his or her
citizenship.
Bosnian identity?
But just let me answer, please. But under this legal, objective identity, you can have every other identity you wish to have, your personal, Bosnian, or several
But
identities.
is that not in theory, again, what should be without us having to
Why are we
debate
constantly
its
talking
supremacy?
about theory? What are the political and practical implications of these theories? If you look closer, you will see that only our suggestion about the supreme identity is actually a real viable solution.
We are...
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues of the team, honorable judges, I will try to be very concrete, practical, because I don't know very much about Aristotle and Plato and stuff like that. I studied in school, but I don't know. You know, as far as I understood, we are talking, my colleague of the opposing team said that in Bosnia and Herzegovina we can have only 3 identities. I think that she was probably referring to constituent people, if I'm not wrong. In such case, I would like to say that, you know, as far as identities are concerned, this is absolutely the fact of having multiple identities, or better to say, a state based on multinationalism, is not in any way at odds with the respect and the enjoyment of full individual rights. We have several states, examples, in which multinational states are better suited for accommodating diversity in the world. Look at, my colleague was proposing the rise of national states as a big advancement in the society. I saw only bringing it massacres and despair. Look at what happened after the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire with the rise of the German nationality, national identity. I don't think that I have to mention the chamber gases and stuff like that. Or let's look, for example, at something more close to us. I mean, let's say that after the Ottoman Empire, maybe had some faults and had some green periods or less, let's say, developed periods, but certainly was an empire based on multinationality. Then, I mean, I don't think that, you know, with the rise of the Turkish national identity, the same different minority identities were equally well accommodated. What I would like also to point out is that, as I was saying, multinational states are better suited to accommodate diversity and multiculturalism. Let's, for example, consider 2 models of integration in Europe with regard to the integration of immigrants. New cultures coming from the 4 different corners of the world. We have the French model, as my colleague Emina was mentioning, uninational. The French, they do not recognize the existence of minorities. They say, you know, no, they don't exist. We don't see them. It's written on paper. That's the law. They put, you know, reservation on their treaties. We don't know what are, you know, minorities. Let's instead consider, on the other hand, states that are prosperous and democratic, like Canada or UK, which are based on multinationalism. And, you know, what is more important for us in the end? Bosnian identity should not be, my main point is that Bosnian identity should not be above the others. Bosnian identity is what we, let's say, need when we need a passport, when we have to pay the taxes for our, let's say, goods and stuff like that. But is this the most important thing? Or our, let's say, traditions, our, let's say, family, culture, religious tradition are more important than that. So we can't allow a so-called neutral identity like the Bosnian one to prevail over the others, especially because we can't not say to ourselves that, you know, Bosnian identity, it may be something that is appealing, but is far from neutral. We can't disregard that the conflict here started because of an issue of identity, in which Bosnian identity was not seen as something neutral, but was seen as something like an imposition, which I see pretty much we are in the same way stuck in our debate today. I still do not understand how this identity above the other could be, let's say, placed above the others in, let's say, a democratic manner. I only see further ways of bringing unrest and mistrust among the peoples here in this beautiful country. So I would rather suggest that the status quo, as it currently is the best solution for Bosnia-Herzegovina, and if we leave finally aside the issue of which identity should be first, we will be able to start thinking about the real problems here. Citizens' rights, resources, renewable energy, ecology, etc., etc., etc. I thank you a lot for your attention.
So, my first question is, do you differentiate between Bosnian and Bosniak?
On the legal
Here we are
sure. On the legal point of view,
identity.
yeah, I have one, of course.
So we are not talking about the Bosniak people, population of the country, but we are talking about Bosnian, the name that derives from the name of the country, as our legal identity.
I understand.
Did you hear an argument that says that we respect diversity and we need multiple identities, but in order to have one legal identity, we need to put that one above? Because you mentioned multiple identities that there should be in the country.
Yes, I heard that. However, I challenge the fact that in order to have a legal identity, you have to put it above the others.
Yes, we are.
That's totally, inaccurate from the legal point of view, because even if you consider the
But citizen diversity.
Sejdić-Finci case can perfectly be accommodated without having a supreme Bosnian identity. I mean, you just
Supreme Bosnian identity, we need one without ethnicity, one without nationality, because exactly this was like the situation. So our third question is like, do you believe that current system, the system we have, the system of three constituent people, is respecting the diversity?
I think that it's totally respecting the diversity, and it's a
respecting
suitable
diversity.
balance
Okay,
between individual rights and community rights.
Can you please clearly state your arguments, because in the introductory speech we are not able to differentiate clearly what are your three arguments. That needs to be. Can you please differentiate, clearly state your argument, the definition of the statement of your argument? Because
Differentiate between your
arguments, because we don't see any division between. There should be three main arguments. And we don't hear the three arguments in the introductory speech.
I was supposing to make a rebuttal of your argument.
And
so,
we have an argument.
I mean, is that
No,
I'm a little bit
yeah,
confused. I mean, my challenge is that basically the Bosnian-Herzegovinian identity will be more
But we are here
precise.
trying
It's
to
not
find
an issue
questions.
one.
We are here trying to find questions that to answer your argument. We did not hear an argument. What we hear is emotional blackmail. We hear multiple
Emotional
diversity.
blackmail?
Yes.
Am I going to look like a blackmail?
Diversity. The current system does have multiple diversity, but it does not provide respect for all diversity.
Absolutely. I mean, I would like to divide between the legal framework, in which I consider totally the fact that, from the legal point of view, the category of the
current
other
system, the one that you're talking about,
First, I must say that I'm quite mad because what you have used to use emotional blackmail, the same one used by ethno-national political elites here in Bosnia. We try to deceive those people here, but you couldn't deceive us. Your arguments, you try to hide your arguments, all the weaknesses, all the lack of the clear facts by your rhetorical skills, which are amazing, I must admit, but it wasn't just enough because we here provided arguments, we provided facts, and I'm also mad because it's evident that you don't understand the current situation in Bosnia.
Thanks.
You don't understand. And the entire second speech was based. No, my speech is by highlighting all your weaknesses and highlighting all our strengths. So your first speech was based. On the social construction, and we do not object that identity is individual, that identities are socially constructed. But what we are saying here that the Bosnian identity, among all other identities, is the only legal and neutral identity that doesn't contain all these prejudices, all these historical burdens, and any other things. So,
in fact,
yes.
Please don't suggest anything to the speaker.
And also, the affirmative team actually understands the nature of the current situation, all-encompassing crisis in BIH, and it's very serious. And when you look at your second speech, it doesn't seem that you actually understand the severity of the current crisis in BIH. Moreover, we understand the eagerness of ethno-national political elites in Bosnia that want to preserve status quo via emotional blackmail, just as you guys want to. Alienation of people and creation of artificial divisions And we understand, unlike negative team, that this is the only way these shrewd and ignorant politicians can safeguard power in their hands. The system they have created is based on corruption, blackmail, and above all manipulation with so-called ethic principles that you base your arguments on. And we are the willing victims of the system created and the system that the negative team is trying to preserve, unfortunately. What I want to say is that we need to take the opportunity and use the census as the only viable exit from this vicious cycle. The exit is Bosnian identity as a supreme identity, as the only one neutral, emotions-free, and carrying no historical burden. Only this identity is the legal one, citizenship-based, that provides equality, that provides flourishment of multiple identities, that provides freedom of choice, that provides equality when it comes to the political, public sphere and civil society sphere and private sphere. Only this identity provides people to keep their privacy, in the private sphere, not the public sphere. Just as you pointed out that, and we have pointed out that if we say that someone is Bosnian, only thing that we can know about person is that their geographical location. What we want to preserve here is equality. We want to safeguard the privacy of the people. Moreover, what I want to say is that we are not here imposing anything. Bosnian identity is currently is present as an identity here. What we are saying here, that it should be the supreme identity because it is the only solution to the current crisis BIH that you actually understand really right well. So that will be it.
So, throughout your speech, you mentioned that we're not providing tangible, real data. Now, here's some real data for you.
You're not supposed to speak now.
It's a closing speech.
And I can provide the references and the bibliography to the judges upon request, of course. We have this recent controversy about the census in Bosnia. We haven't had a census in Bosnia since 1991. We're supposed to have one at the end of the year. There's a company called Prism Research, and again, I can provide the sources if you need them. That did a small-scale trial run of the census just a couple of months ago. And here are the results. 50% of the people would like to or will identify themselves as Bosnians. 1/3 of the people will identify themselves as Serbs. About 10% will identify themselves as Croats. And between 2 to 4% will identify themselves as Bosnians. So don't talk about the should. You're making a normative statement. Here is a positive statement, what is happening now on the ground. Okay? So, continuing on with the argument. The Bosnian identity is not ambitious enough. It is too parochial. It is too local. To come back to our previous argument. Where's my identity as a European, as a citizen of the world, as a basketball player, as an economist? Okay? Then I would argue that your concept of identity is regressive. It's very much the old Europe of the 18th and 19th century. The Germans have a word for that, the Blut and Boden concept of the old Europe. Okay? What the real identity always is the economic class of the individual. I can associate myself with a successful sports team, a soccer team, a basketball team. Okay? And what we want to argue here is that success breeds identity. If we have a successful economic system in Bosnia, I will want to associate myself with the Bosnian identity because we have a successful economic system in this country.
Yeah, make them work for that.
Okay? Identity should not be imposed from above. It should develop freely, organically, and genuinely, so that people of their own free will want to associate with the Bosnian identity. Now, we argue for better leaders, better schools, better sports teams, not better identities.
Through what?
Bosnia should not be degraded into a philosophical or an emotional arena. It should be based in good services in the country, and when emotion comes, it will be by default. It will be organic, not by imposition and coercion. The affirmative team confuses identity, law, citizenship, and thinks you can have a magic stick of Bosnian. That's what the Bosnian demagogues would do, or are currently trying to attempt to do. We should do the work, not talk about should or would. Do the actual work to improve the country, and don't talk about normative statements such as we should or ought to have this.
Could you please read the title again, please?
So, in closing, identity is a collection. It's an amalgam. There cannot be a supremacy in identity. If it can, then that supremacy at a later stage can be debated, and it should develop again organically, genuinely, freely.
Is that again?
Am I out of time?
1 minute.
Okay. And just in closing, you don't understand your position.
In closing, you don't understand your position. Spoken as true teachers. We don't
At
get
the
it.
end, I would like to thank all participants for a very dynamic and interesting debate. At this point, the judges will leave the room for 10 minutes in order to come to a agreement about the winner of this debate. I will use these 10 minutes for any comments or questions which you can address to any of the participants. Does anyone have a comment or question?
Yes, I do. And I'm terrible because I'm not a political scientist. I'm a foreign.
Hello, Gina.
I think that the whole point is that this team has taken a semantic view of the question. Perhaps you should have agreed on really what the question means. So their whole argument was based on semantics. We know exactly what you're talking about. We know that in this country, there is a president of a part of this country who says his capital is Belgrade. And so we know that that's the issue.
They don't. Yes.
Can I answer that though? Can I actually answer that very honestly? Obviously, I mean, all of us, while the judges are not here, understand fully this position and why it should be defended. But you know, when that guy who says Belgrade is his capital travels, he fills out a Bosnian passport. And he's identified as that man. When we start, you know, when we discuss constantly, should we be Bosnian or should we not be Bosnian, the problem is that both sides enter the arena. Should we or should we not? And what our position was, I think, what we were trying to do, and we were very, very good opponents, what we were trying to do is to say, we need to displace that argument. When we talk about Bosnia, we should talk about services, we should talk about stronger state, we should talk about my legal rights, better schools, roads. We should not discuss this theoretical arena of what should be the supremacies of our identities. Now, we completely understand, obviously, what you're arguing, and now that the judges are not here, we concede, of course, to everything you're saying. But the problem is that that was not the phrasing of this debate. And this is what we had to cling on to, because this is not the proper, what you are arguing is not that the Bosnian identity should be the supreme identity in VIH. You're arguing...
missing a word, like
Sorry?
the legal.
It should be
missing
said,
a word.
if it said like, you know,
No, it's just a matter of defining
the citizen
identity.
of Bosnia needs to be protected regardless of his ethnicity, his minority group. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, all citizens of Bosnia should enjoy equal rights. That's a different
And only Bosnia can provide that.
We were stating that the causes are political and economical, and not that it should or shouldn't. It's not.
This is the debate, not the...
No, we understood the debate question perfectly because we provided we identified our speech as causes, implications, and solutions. So the causes, why it should be, were political, economical.
But our problem is that all three of yours are the same. Your causes is that it's not the primary identity. Your solution is that it should be.
Emotional blackmail.
Causes has no politics. The political, economical implications are facts like religion, education,
Yes,
like
but it
economy.
doesn't solve that through just identity.
But I think your problem is Francesco's speech.
No, Francesco's our favorite. Do I look like a bully? Do I look like I'm bullying somebody?
On what, I mean, I like the direction in which the debate could have gone after Amina's speech. So on one side you have
So everybody else messed it up.
somewhat of a,
no.
The affirmative presents the case essentially providing a policy solution and trying to steer away the discussion from theoretical considerations, but Amina says, no, you're not going to get off the hook so easily because we need to take into consideration the theoretical implications, on which at least I mean, the least successful one is about the global citizenship and so on, because it actually directly answered by their first argument, which Nader correctly points out, is that the supremacy of Bosnian identity is there to provide for you to be considered a female Muslim as equally successfully as being somebody else.
But that identity doesn't provide that.
Perhaps
Law provides that. The Constitution provides that, not an identity.
Exactly, but they provide the legal framework in which that identity would work. But then Francesco comes in, disregards what Emina has been saying.
Well, we didn't really have a meeting before. So.
He says, actually, I believe that status quo provides the best possible solution without answering their arguments about political and legal and economic implications, and not actually providing reasons why the status quo is working in any manageable, politically, economically, ideologically, socially, culturally way. No, he said it specifically. And in the cross-examination, Ilana asked him, do you agree with the status quo? And he essentially said, yes, status quo is something that provides for solutions.
How about the students, our guests? Did you enjoy it? Was it good?
Yes.
I am colleague of A2 speaker. I am first year of political science. But I want to give just an overall comment on both teams together and the complete debate. I think you should have made a deal. What are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about a semantic identity? Are you going to talk about theoretical implications of identity? Legal framework in which identity.
But if we did that, we would have no argument.
I mean, no, that's the beauty of the debate. Everybody can choose. That's the beauty that they can choose to have various approaches.
Yes, we did.
But if there's so many to debate on it's not going to happen. Nothing's going to happen because there's always going to be some more arguments for both sides.
Yeah, but I think the purpose of this debate was for you all is not for one side to win or not. I hope we win, but it was to underline, I suppose, what we were trying to do is to take a position that seems so clearly defendable and to introduce into it the complexity of what forms an identity. And should your civic rights, should your citizenship be dependent on something, on some kind of a common consensus of identity? And if it should, how do you build that? So I think this is a chicken and egg debate. What comes first? And I think this is where we differ in our arguments. Because somebody can say, first you got to have a chicken, we got to all be Bosnian identity, and then integration would come. And what we were trying to say is, well, if you have success and if you take the right political moves, it will become an irrelevant argument. Because we will by default
corner you with the question of what's the practical implication. They literally corner you in the cross-examination, and Francesco says,
Francesco dropped the ball again. Francesco.
And then in order to defend the status quo, you need to defend all the implications of the status quo.
I mean, the point is basically that, if you try to say that, first of all, in order to have a better, more economic viable system, you necessarily have to have a national state. Well, that's wrong from a
No, that's not what they're saying. They're criticizing the 19th century.
Well, maybe you should have been on the debate.
I think you're right when you said you wouldn't have an argument, and I think you're slightly confused and scared him a bit. You shouldn't have been so scared. You had a good argument. But I think you should have mentioned, possibly you should have focused on the census like Goran did. And you should have mentioned question number 24. You should have mentioned that actually complaining about the fact you shouldn't mix nationality with ethnic identity.
I have actually, if I may recall my speech, I said a census has a category that says ethnic national selection, which is not in accordance with public or international law, and which further indicates that Bosnia is actually stuck in the 18th century that equates ethnicity with nationality, and that is essentially the problem, because they do not understand nation-state in the modern global terms, which is that it is a country that has unified legal nationality, under which there has many ethnicities, many different cultures.
Again, I take you back to the proposition. No, see, all of these things are wonderful, but they're not what the debate is about, in terms of how it is written. See, this is a problem. So what we were arguing to that, for example, is to say, because we have a concept there, not a political proposition, we're saying if you take the census and nobody is Bosnian, does that mean there is no Bosnian? It's not true.
So if you added the category, I can also be Bosnian, does it mean that some people can also be not Bosnian? We were saying we were trying to say that the Bosnian is so much higher than this sort of a ethnic, religious, that we don't want to degrade the concept in an arena.
The question is, what is identity?
Exactly. So when we talk about identity, we talk about personal affiliation, we talk about the definition of that word. We're not talking about how the state is functioning or not functioning. And one is a consequence of the other. And this is why I think the primary thing about identity that we all actually really believe is its mutability. The more we are together, the better we do together, the more we will have in common with one another and agree on these things. And that doesn't mean we have to give up one thing in favor of another. When you say supremacy, that immediately means I'm first Bosnian, and then I am a girl, and then am I more loyal to my family than to the country? Should I make these decisions? I mean, because supremacy means that. It's a grading scale.
But in political terms, there needs to be a grading scale. That's why
not an identity in law, yes. In my rights, yes, but not in my identity.
But in order to have identity in a world that is legal and that is controlled by law, you need to have the legal stand.
That's identification.
It will maybe be in the state of nature that you can choose which identity is higher to you. But if we live in a world that is governed by international law or state law, then we have to.
I propose a rematch next week.
Okay, our guest from which university? A comment, question?
Yes, I would like just to give a short comment about I'm a senior teaching assistant at the International Board University. We were invited by the students to come here and see. Our was the first one last week. Also, our students, we didn't have this interesting concept between professors and students. We had a debate between students. And I'm impressed by the way you are not intimidated by the professors.
No, we're intimidated by them.
Or other way around, it didn't seem like that.
No, we're pretty scared.
So I really think maybe even the British Parliament style would be even more excited. But really we enjoyed it. I just think I mentioned it. I don't know. Did anyone hear me? Okay, really here, by my opinion, there is something that you are saying that legally, by law, it shouldn't be stated like that, and I agree with you, And they are, by my opinion, they are talking really about that legally we should all be stated as Bosnians, and we should, in the Constitution it should be changed. In the Constitution it should be changed. But what Professor Goran said at the end, what the data are saying, who is feeling at the end when they have also other options like Bosniak, Serb and Croat or other, who is stating that he is Bosnian?
In this room.
So you are in that 4%, and that is the question. How will you do that should on people?
No, it's actually, if we ask how should Bosnia be supreme identity, that would be a policy debate, and then we would be debating the ways in which this could be or could not be achieved. It should be, and that is what Professor Goran made a mistake in his speech, constantly citing us for making that mistake, whereas he was making that mistake. And also my comment is that in the third speech, you are not supposed to give economical facts and data. You're supposed to make an impact statement.
And you lost.
All right, the judges are back.
If you ask American where he's from USA. He's not American. As Professor Adissa taught me, they should be called USAians.
But actually, should this not be Bosnian-Herzegovinian identity? Should be the supreme identity in Bosnia?
Just saying, there's many people living in America, and they all will say they're from America. So we are all from Bosnia, we are Bosnians, but our religion and our identity is our own.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
If there aren't any more questions, the first speaker of the affirmative team would like to ask.
Yes, we just want to say that we're very proud that we made such three amazing speakers play on the card of audience instead of answering our questions.
We would like to say the affirmative team should stop insulting us. Debate is over. Or we'll take revenge on it.
Finals are coming.
We still like you.
So now let's hear for the judges to give their comment.
And we agreed that I will start. First of all, to address some of the key issues or the key arguments. One of the key arguments of the affirmative team was that the Bosnian identity is something neutral and would resolve ethnic divisions, giving certain cases as to this issue and citing some facts from the Sejdic and Finci case. The second two arguments were introduced by the A2 member. You only vote for the survival of your ethnic groups. The elections come up to counting blood cells, and a supreme Bosnian identity therefore would erase or avoid negative consequences of ethnopolitics or ethnopolitically based decisions. And the third argument was that such a situation where we have a division of identities is even destructive for other non-constituent people having a non-constituent, if I may say, identity, at least not recognized in law by Bosnia, and that therefore the Bosnian identity should be the supreme identity in BNH. Well, the negative or the negatory team tried to rebut those arguments by stating first of all that on one hand we all are composed of different parts of our own personality which form identities, and that we shouldn't speak about the should be of a supreme identity in BNH, since we all have a part, probably in us, of a Bosnian and Herzegovinian identity as well as all other parts of our identity. On the other hand, also the negatory team said that the identity is a matter of feeling, whereas the affirmative team assured that identity is a matter of social engineering, being a kind of intellectual construct. Well, those were the key clashes, and the N2 member also stated that it is not, or in his opinion, it is not necessarily true that countries or multi-identity countries cannot function properly, and cites examples on this, although the negatory team admits also that there are uni-national countries where social identity is, so to say, engineered and constructed and sanctioned by law. Whereas the affirmative team stated here that having one identity, the Bosnian identity, being as a supreme identity, is the only viable way to resolve this situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Well, we could debate about what I have said before concerning identities and whether it is a social construct or a feeling, and we certainly would not be able to come to a definitive conclusion concerning this, which goes in favor of the negatory team. On the other hand, we can also debate about whether it is the only viable way for Bosnia and Herzegovina to have one Bosnian supreme identity. And in this case, since the negatory team cited examples from experience, we have our doubts whether this is the only viable way, or I have my doubts, so this also goes in favor of the negatory team. To come to my to come to my final conclusion in order to build the tension a little bit up, I would like to say that, before entering the decision, I would like to say that we had here a competition between professors and students, and we, of course, as judges, expected much more from the professors than they have delivered here. And we are very proud of the students' position, which was not very easy to defend, especially because of a somewhat unlucky selection of words like supreme identity. The students probably could have said something like supreme being the most common denominator in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They would have had an easier case in this situation, because then they could have argued that we all are to a part Bosnians, and that we are actually, that something should only be incited and it doesn't have to be legally imposed, that it will somehow develop. But in any case, despite of this fact, I would say that the negatory team did well and did correctly, accurately, whereas the students are, in my opinion, a little bit more meritorious in this situation, since they have had a much harder position and tried to defend it. Well, to sum it up, the negatory team still wins, in my opinion. Because they managed to put myself into doubt whether this thesis stands.
Yeah, whether this thesis stands, not their arguments. That's the key. Yeah. Sit back down. It ain't over. It ain't over.
But the final verdict has been...
No.
It's only one vote.
There are 3 votes here. Would you like to... Let me, if I may just interject for a moment.
What? Don't interrupt. We did two more votes.
Oh, the verdict. I want... Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tijana Ljuboj, and I would like to say hello from the Center of Cultivating Dialogue, which is the partner of the organization of this event. First of all, when it comes about this debate, I would like to say many thanks to the professors who have shown that learning process is a process of equal people. There are no people who are much more evaluated than others. When it comes to my verdict, I won't be too long as Mladen. I will just say a few... I'll just say that this was very interesting debate. Unfortunately, I would like, it would be much more interesting if it was the British parliamentary debating format, because this debate was a combination of 3 debate formats, KP, KPP and BP debate format.
And us not knowing what we're doing.
So, when we are trying, but Karl Popper policy and British parliamentary debating format. Debate format. That combination is actually a combination of many rules, and we decided as judges to not actually evaluate your rules by the position, but just logical things in this debate. So this wasn't the... It should have, because this debate was a combination of many debate formats, and we actually this just wasn't the KP format. We decided that in this position, judging by the affirmative and the negative, judging affirmative and the negative side, by my flow sheet and judge, ballot negative team won in this debate, because they actually defined the motion better than the affirmative team in this debate. I want to...
Well, hello, my name is Nadina. I'm the 3rd judge. Since my vote is not that important, I will try to keep it short. Just to tell the affirmative team why we decided not to evaluate the respecting of the rules of the format, because both of the teams had their mistakes. So we decided to ignore those mistakes, such as introducing new data as third negative member did. What I would like to say is that I was amazed by the students, how well they did. The fact that you actually stood up to your professors and decided not to think about possible consequences.
And there will be consequences.
I really admire you. I would like to say that I think that mostly based on their knowledge and their life experience, professors did better since they had more data and they had a little bit better logic. But however, students did extremely well, especially during the cross-examination, when they actually answered quite well and made quite good questions, to which some of the professors did not answer properly. I would, if I had more time, I would tell you the questions and the answers. That is not the point. However, I must say that, sadly, the professors won.
I think we won because we looked at the semantics of this. I think you won in terms of the validity of your opinions, and I think you won in terms of the correctness of your position. And I think it is correct, and I think it's very important for all of us to say that. I think you were absolutely brilliant, and I think our only little window of opportunity there was that we clutched on to definitions and to semantics, which is a lesson you should know. And the lesson that I've also learned in life when you're debating a point. The argument in the end that wins is not the better argument. Yours was the better argument. It's the dispassionate, analytical, legal, the definitive that sometimes takes precedent. That's unfortunate. So I think we both won today, just on different points.